Up to Speed Compliance Partners, that's my consultancy. So anti-money laundering, teaching people to money launder, to actually stop money laundering. And this is just a sort of simplified introduction to what all this is about. I've been here a few months and probably never explained what I actually do. And legal learners, so I won't go through it, but I'm not giving anybody advice here. So this is myself and my partner Bianca from our trip to New Zealand a couple of months ago. It was really nice, South Island. Had a great time. That's our Labradoodle Sandy, so he's very energetic, and that's basically what he's like in that photo. And Yuki, she's Bianca's sister's dog. She's a cavoodle, and she's also very lovely. So yeah, love dogs, don't have any cats at the moment. I think these two wouldn't like that. And myself. So my background is in law. I'm also a commercial lawyer and assistant company secretary. And how did I get into all this? I used to be at AUSTRAC, that's the anti-money laundering regulator. I was in the enforcement team, so going after your casinos, your big banks, and some government compliance experience before that. And CAMS, that's my certification in AML. Anyway, let's get into what all this actually is. So when a criminal gets some money, it could be from dealing drugs, could be from fraud or corruption, they have an issue. They've got a lot of money, but they can't actually do that much with it. You can't just take it to the bank. They're going to ask you, Ashley, how did you get these hundreds of thousands of dollars? I need an explanation. So money laundering is about creating a backstory for criminal money. And unfortunately, one of the major ways to do that is to abuse the services of people who are in this very room. So real estate and companies and trusts heavily abused for money laundering. They're not. So people take the dirty money, they try to put it into a house. They could sell that house down the line. Once you've got a house sale, no one's really going to question where the money come from. Companies and trusts, you can make some fake transactions, some management consulting or something like that. So criminals target these businesses pretty heavily. So for a long time, that's just been left to the banks to worry about, and people still ask, isn't this the bank's job? Well, it is, but it also is extending to some new people. So independent, well, these are my focus, so it's all real estate agents, but my focus is independent ones, because they don't have a situation room like Ray White or something like that. They need to handle this themselves. Buyers agents, property developers selling directly to the market, so off the plan, or they build and then they sell directly without a real estate agent in the middle, accountants and conveyancers. And the market is quite big. 80,000 businesses will receive AML obligations from 1 by 2026. So definitely it's a bit scary for people, trying to make that less scary. So I never tell anybody they need to have a consultant, but I do point out the difference between winging it, what I call the ad hoc approach, and the strategic approach. So there's a lot of policies you have to integrate into your workflows, the way you work. So you need to really map out the way you work. You need to know what new processes have to come in to fit those in there, to make sure it's efficient. Staff training is a major focus. So when this comes in, a lot of staff are going to be quite uncertain about what they actually have to do, which is not a great impression to make with a customer, that you have these obligations, but you don't actually know how to apply them. You don't want your staff to be uncertain. When you don't know what you're doing, you create risks. It's a long process, doing a large property sale or having a accounting relationship. And people won't sleep well at night, so that's a major focus of BNI Victory, and I'm helping people to sleep better at night. So integrate into your workflows and make your staff confident with the customers. So key dates. One of these is already passed, 31 March, but that's okay because you don't have to do anything just yet. But that's when it became profitable to enroll with AUSTRAC as a reporting entity. So they call these businesses. 1 July, that's the big date. That's when these obligations kick in. So before then, you really want to know what you're doing. Make sure you're starting trained. 29 July, if there's one thing you don't enroll after that. I mean, do enroll if you forgot, but try to enroll before then, because if you enroll after that, you open yourself up to a civil penalty, the kind of thing I dish out at Laundering. So what is needed? Some policies, risk assessment program. You basically lay out the risks your business is exposed to, how you're going to handle them. Risks include what kind of customers you serve, what kind of countries you're serving. So some countries are recognized as being higher risk, So I don't just mean North Korea or Iran, but even People's Republic of China, hiring other countries of medium risk, India, Pakistan. Service delivery channels, how you're delivering your services. Do you see your customers, or do you just get an email? Nobody just somebody who they don't know anything about, they just get an email, but some do. The general risk in the country, you've got to integrate this into the way you work. Staff training. So AML is pretty complex. There's a lot of materials online, but they're still extremely complex. So even I myself had to read through them a few times to really get it. That's with a pretty strong background in this. So you have to make sure your staff understand the risks the business is exposed to as a whole, and the risks that they'll be exposed to in their role. So if they're working directly with the customer, if they're identifying the customer, you've got to know how to do that. So it's quite a bit of training to be done. Takes at least 4 or 5 hours, in my opinion, to get a staff member to understand what they're doing. And you have the boss, so all the time the boss might not understand this very well either. So quite a bit of training to be done, has to be refreshed routinely. So it's something that's a real audience community. So don't be scared. This also didn't render too well. Lost some arrows across the way. Anyway, the approximate workflow, won't go through all of it, detail or anything, but you've got to identify your customer, you've got to know who they are, got to do certain checks on them, whether they're a politician exposed to politics, give them a risk rating, make sure you've established what you need to know on reasonable grounds, and decide whether or not you want to serve them, or even if you want to report them from lost track. If they're particularly risky, you think they're connected to crime. So a lot of it's just common sense. You've got to ask yourself, does this actually make sense? Is this person with a ridiculously complex structure seeking my service? Why do they have that structure? Does the transaction actually make sense? If they buy a house 2 weeks ago, now they want to sell it again? It's a bit suspicious. The market's hot, but it's not quite that hot. So these are common sense questions you need to ask. So my service, my main focus right now is on the quick start service. Advanced will probably come down the line. But helping businesses to get enrolled, a lot of businesses can do that part, but the staff training is very complicated. So staff need to be trained across different scenarios, given quizzes to prove that they actually learn something, not just in one area or out the other. Workflow integration, so making sure that the business does those AML tasks when they need to. So you map out the workflow and then fit those tasks in there. There's a lot of little obscure ones that I'll help with. So government's keeping me busy by putting in those obscure tasks. And audit proofing as well. So like I said, there's materials out there. My opinion, the opinion of other in the industry, they're not quite as comprehensive as they should be. I think Austrac, they're trying to put people in a position where they'll just commit to never do things. Which doesn't really correspond to how the real world works. You can't necessarily commit you'll never ever serve that kind of customer. So they've got to make it a bit more sophisticated. And I can also provide direct advice. So when people are put into a complex situation where they've got a customer they don't quite know how to handle, I can provide direct advice on that on a routine basis. Help to brief the big bosses of the company as well to see how they're doing, what they might have to improve. There you go. It's a nice photo I took. Nothing to do with AML. Someone needs guidance in those business areas that we mentioned. Now's the time to get up to speed. 1 July, it's not very far away. I had a countdown timer, but it couldn't make it this presentation. It would make it even scarier. But anyway, reach out to me if people are going to happy to help.
Any questions for Ashley?